And I looked down at my hands, and my hands were shaking, and I was sweating so profusely, and I could not move. I could not walk. My knees would not move.
At 71, Kim Basinger stands as one of Hollywood's most influential yet complex figures. As a former fashion model who became a global star in the 80s and 90s, she captivated audiences with roles in films like 9.5 Weeks and L.A. Confidentia. These iconic roles cemented her as one of the most recognizable leading ladies of her generation. Sadly, while her beauty and talent seemed effortless on screen, life behind the camera told a much different story. Over the years, she has faced battles that few of her fans could have imagined. She struggled with a bitter marriage to Alec Baldwin, an excruciating custody battle over their daughter, Ireland, and even had to deal with severe anxiety, panic attacks, and agoraphobia, off the screen, and many more. Now, in her early 70s, Kim Basinger's story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. Join us as we take a look at her struggles and how someone so radiant and at the forefront of the screen sunk into obscurity so fast. Kim's story is a long and rough one, but long before the red carpets and flashing cameras, Kim Basinger grew up in Athens, Georgia, the shy daughter of a big Southern family. Life then was simpler, but came with habits that would continue way into the future. And so let's start her story for the very beginning. A fragile beginning. Kim Basinger's early life. Hollywood is filled with stories of stars who seemed destined for greatness. Yet Kim Basinger's path was never straightforward. From her earliest days in Athens, Georgia, she lived in a world of contradiction. She was a striking beauty with a crippling shyness, outward grace, and inward fear. A longing for invisibility, even as destiny pulled her toward the spotlight. She was born Camilla Ann Basinger on the 8th of December 1953 and was the third of 5 children in a bustling household. Her father, Donald Wade Basinger, had been a U.S. Army soldier and jazz musician, a man of discipline who carried the echoes of big band energy into their home. Her mother, Ann Cordell, brought an air of glamour, having once worked as a model and swim instructor. Between the two of them, the Basinger children grew up under the weight of expectation, with discipline on one side, beauty and poise on the other. The Basinger household was noisy, filled with siblings competing for space, attention, and identity. Kim's older brothers, Mick and Skip, were bold and outgoing. Her sisters, Barbara and Ashley, louder and more assured. In that environment, Kim retreated. Teachers described her as painfully shy. Her classmates sometimes mistook her silence for aloofness, and even at home, she was the quiet one, the child who often sat listening, observing, rather than speaking. Yet silence should not be mistaken for emptiness. She felt everything intensely. She was deeply sensitive, so attuned to the moods and emotions of those around her that she often carried their weight as her own. This sensitivity, misunderstood in childhood, would later become her greatest gift as an actress, the ability to radiate emotion without words, to communicate pain, desire, or vulnerability with a single glance. Kim's shyness was more than a personality quirk. It was a burden and a consuming force. In school, she dreaded the simplest acts of participation. Reading aloud in class could send her into near panic, and walking into a crowded cafeteria filled her with dread. Social anxiety wasn't widely understood in the 1950s and 1960s, and her silence was often dismissed as timidity. In reality, she lived in constant battle with fear. Her parents tried to help in different ways. Her father believed in discipline and structure. He encouraged her to channel herself into ballet, hoping that physical movement might give her confidence where words failed. Her mother, seeing her daughter's beauty, nudged her toward pageants and local competitions, hoping attention would bring her out of her shell. Both meant well, but neither fully understood the depth of her inner struggles. The paradox was painful for her. She longed for invisibility, Yet her beauty made her impossible to ignore. Blonde hair, fair skin, piercing blue eyes by her teenage years, she had the look of a porcelain doll. Strangers would comment on her appearance, often not realizing how much it embarrassed her. Compliments were uncomfortable, attention suffocating. She wanted to disappear into the background, but she couldn't. Where words and attention failed her, ballet became her salvation. From the moment she slipped into dance shoes, she discovered a language she could trust. Movement gave her an outlet for emotions she couldn't articulate. The discipline of ballet mirrored her father's structured influence, while the grace and beauty of it reflected her mother's world. For hours, she practiced at the bar, pouring her quiet intensity into every movement. Dance allowed her to exist in a world where silence was not weakness but part of the art. She didn't need to speak, her body told the story. In those moments, she was no longer the shy Southern girl shrinking from the spotlight. She was expressive, powerful, radiant, even if the audience never knew the trembling that preceded each performance. By her teenage years, her beauty was undeniable, and in a town like Athens, Georgia, that meant pageants. At first, the idea terrified her. The thought of standing on a stage with judges and strangers scrutinizing her triggered the same panic that had haunted her since childhood. But her mother, who saw modeling as a possible path for her daughter, pushed her gently forward. To everyone's surprise, she excelled. Her delicate poise and quiet elegance stood out among the more boisterous competitors. Crowned Athens Junior Miss, she proved that even someone crippled by shyness could hold a stage, if only for a moment. While the trophies and titles suggested confidence, inside she was still fighting the same fears. Success never erased the anxiety. It only magnified the stakes. Still, the pageant circuit was her first real brush with a larger world, hinting at the life awaiting her far beyond Georgia. After graduating high school, she faced the choice that would shape her future. She could either stay in the safety of Athens or step into the unknown. When Ford Models, which was one of New York's most prestigious agencies, offered her a contract, the decision was both exhilarating and terrifying. Arriving in New York in the early 70s, she entered a world unlike anything she had known. The city was overwhelming, filled with crowded subways, honking taxis, the endless noise of Manhattan. For a girl who once trembled in a classroom of 20 peers, the chaos of New York was nearly unbearable. There were days when her anxiety pinned her inside her small apartment, afraid to face the streets below. On set, something remarkable happened. When the camera turned on her, her vulnerability transformed into allure. Photographers adored her softness, the haunting quality of her gaze, the way she seemed both present and distant at the same time. Her face graced magazine covers, shampoo commercials, and national campaigns. The amount of publicity was one, but many couldn't get even if they tried hard to. Yet, she got it, despite not wanting it. This didn't make the spotlight any bearable, though. She was earning a living most young women only dreamed of. Yet behind the glossy photographs was still the frightened girl from Athens, trying to breathe through panic. Her modeling success highlighted the irony that defined her life. The very qualities that made her special were also the ones that caused her the most pain. Her beauty was a gift, but it was also a burden. Attention terrified her, but attention was the currency of her career. Vulnerability made her a brilliant model and later an extraordinary actress, but it also left her fragile in a world that demanded toughness. She lived in the constant duality of being applauded for her image, yet misunderstood for her silence. People mistook her quiet for detachment, her nervousness for aloofness. Few understood that beneath the stillness was someone overwhelmed by sensitivity. By the late 1970s, Kim's modeling career had peaked, and she began searching for something more. Acting classes offered a new path, another way to channel her emotions. At first, the idea was almost unbearable. The thought of standing before others, speaking lines and risking judgment. Yet acting also promised liberation, as it allowed her to step outside herself, to inhabit characters whose voices were louder and stronger than her own. This was the seed of her transformation from model to actress. But the same contradictions that haunted her childhood followed her into Hollywood. The very traits that had once made her the painfully shy girl from Athens would later make her a reluctant star, brilliant on screen, but vulnerable behind the curtain. Looking back, her early life feels like both preparation and warning. The quiet Southern girl who froze in front of her classmates was the same woman who trembled backstage at the Academy Awards decades later. The ballet dancer who poured her soul into silent movement was the actress who could command a scene without speaking a word. The teenager crowned in small-town pageants was the model who took over New York, and the actress who later captivated Hollywood. From stardom to shadows, Kim Basinger's Hollywood rise. After capturing the undivided attention of casting directors, they couldn't look away. Her vulnerability translated to the screen in a way that felt raw and magnetic. Her first notable roles came in television, with appearances on Charlie's Angels, Macmillan and Wife, and The $6 Million Man. She paid her dues in the episodic landscape of late 70s television, slowly sharpening her craft. Then, in 1983, she landed the role that would catapult her into international stardom, Bond girl Domino Patachi, in Never Say Never Again, opposite Sean Connery. Kim's striking beauty, icy allure, and quiet intensity made her unforgettable. For audiences, she was no longer just a model. She was now a movie star. For her, it was only just the beginning. Throughout the 80s and early 90s, she became one of Hollywood's most sought-after actresses, each role built on the last, showcasing not only her beauty but also her depth. Her acting in 9.5 Weeks opposite Mickey Rourke showed her deliver one of her most iconic performances, embodying both vulnerability and eroticism. Though the film was controversial, it cemented her as a daring actress unafraid of intensity. Then came her appearance in Batman in 1989, where she starred as Vicky Vale in Tim Burton's blockbuster. She brought warmth and humanity to the Gothic spectacle, introducing her to an entirely new generation of fans. Another notable role was in 1984's The Natural. Working alongside Robert Redford, she displayed elegance and mystique, proving she could hold her own alongside Hollywood's biggest names. These films solidified her status not just as a star, but as a cultural phenomenon. She became the epitome of the era's Hollywood goddess, appearing in magazine covers, red carpets, and tabloid headlines as her name became a household standard. Her greatest triumph came in 1997, when she played Lynn Bracken, the complex femme fatale in L.A. Confidential. The role was electric, and it won her the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. At that moment, she had reached the pinnacle of Hollywood, an Oscar winner, admired by her peers and adored by audiences. Sadly, even as her career continued its fast-paced rise, she carried the weight of struggles that fame could not erase. Behind the flawless images and red carpet gowns, her lifelong battle with anxiety and panic attacks persisted. While colleagues praised her talent, they also noticed her fragility. She often found public appearances overwhelming, sometimes retreating for long periods to protect herself. The spotlight that had seemed like destiny now felt like a trap. The pressure to remain flawless, the scrutiny of her personal life, and the relentless pace of Hollywood began to wear her down. Fame had given her everything she thought she wanted, yet it also magnified the very fears she had carried since her childhood in Georgia. Her personal life, too, became entangled with the weight of stardom. Her high-profile marriage to Alec Baldwin in 1993 seemed like a fairy tale blessed between two beautiful stars at the height of their powers. A glamorous couple adored by the press. The pressures of fame, combined with Kim's own sensitivity and Alec's fiery temperament, created cracks that the public would eventually see explode in divorce and a bitter custody battle. For every triumph, there was a shadow. The breaking point: Kim Basinger's personal and financial battles. At the peak of her career, she had won an Academy Award, starred in some of Hollywood's biggest films, and become one of the most recognized women in the world. On the surface, her life appeared charmed, but beneath the glamour, the cracks were beginning to spread. In 1990, Kim met Alec Baldwin on the set of The Marrying Man. Their chemistry was immediate, both on screen and off, and by 1993, they were married, and to outsiders, it seemed like the perfect Hollywood union. Together, they welcomed their daughter, Ireland, in 1995, completing the picture of a glamorous family. Sadly, behind the glossy magazine spreads and red carpet appearances, the marriage was stormy. Both Kim and Alec were strong-willed, sensitive, and often volatile. Alec, known for his fiery temper, and Kim, with her fragile emotional state, clashed often. Their disagreements became legendary in Hollywood circles, with friends and colleagues noting the intensity of their arguments. For Kim, who had always been deeply private, the strain of a high-profile marriage under constant media scrutiny became suffocating. What had begun as a fairy tale was unraveling into a nightmare. In 2002, after nearly a decade together, Kim and Alec divorced. The split was bitter, played out not only in courtrooms but also in tabloids. Their custody battle over Ireland quickly became one of the most infamous in Hollywood history. Both Kim and Alec accused each other of failings, and their daughter was caught in the middle of a public war. The tension reached a breaking point in 2007, when he left an angry voicemail for 11-year-old Ireland, calling her a rude, thoughtless little pig. When the voicemail leaked, it caused a media firestorm, painting him as abusive and Kim as a victim. For her, the ordeal was devastating. Her natural instinct had always been to shield herself from public scrutiny, but now the most painful chapter of her life was being dissected by strangers. She fought fiercely for Ireland, but the scars of the custody battle lingered for years. As if her personal struggles weren't enough, Kim was also grappling with financial disaster. In the early 1990s, she had purchased the small town of Brazelton, Georgia, with dreams of turning it into a tourist destination and film hub. It was a bold move, but one that quickly became a financial burden. Within a few years, she was forced to sell the property at a significant loss. Around the same time, her decision to withdraw from the controversial film Boxing Helena resulted in a lawsuit that nearly bankrupted her. She was ordered to pay damages estimated at over $8 million, effectively crumbling her financial security. For someone who had once commanded millions per film, the reversal was staggering. The lawsuits, combined with her personal battles, created a perfect storm. The woman who had once embodied Hollywood success was now fighting to hold her life together. The combination of a bitter divorce, relentless media attention, financial strain, and ongoing battles with anxiety pushed her further into isolation. She began withdrawing from Hollywood, appearing in fewer films, and turning down roles that might have revitalized her career. Her lifelong struggle with panic disorder and agoraphobia resurfaced with full force. At times, she reportedly found it nearly impossible to leave her home. Friends described her as reclusive, choosing the safety of privacy over the chaos of the spotlight. For someone who had never been comfortable with fame, obscurity became less a choice than a necessity. By the late 2000s, Kim's once bright star had dimmed. While she occasionally took on roles such as in 8 Mile and The Door in the Floor, her presence in Hollywood was fleeting. Unlike many of her counterparts, she never embraced reinvention or sought to chase relevance. Instead, she stepped quietly back, living a life far from the glare of cameras. Today, at 71, Kim Basinger lives in relative obscurity, remembered more for the turbulence of her life than the brilliance of her career. Her story is one of extraordinary highs and crushing lows, telling of a shy Southern girl who conquered Hollywood but could never fully conquer herself. Her marriage to Alec Baldwin, once a symbol of Hollywood glamour, ended in heartbreak and public humiliation. Her finances, once overflowing, collapsed under the weight of lawsuits and failed investments. Her lifelong struggles with anxiety and agoraphobia pushed her further from the spotlight until she all but disappeared. Yet, her story, efforts, and achievements remain valid in Hollywood's history. Kim Basinger's tragedy is not that she failed, but that her greatest gifts, beauty, sensitivity, vulnerability, were also the very traits that left her most exposed and vulnerable to pain. What do you think of Kim Basinger's life and her struggles? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video is released.